Lynn Cullen goes live in 3 minutes. Lynn Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello there. Look who we got. You haven't been here, it feels like, in a while.
Yeah, we didn't do last month.
We didn't do last month, I wonder.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, look who's here. History prof and Obama apologist and Daylee News Nuggets.
Mm-hmm. Hasn't been Daylee lately.
No, and I've actually gotten emails from people saying, where are my nuggets?
Yeah.
Okay, are they going to be missing him for a while now? He's been incredibly busy. I got worried. I thought, oh my God, what if he's sick? What if he was run over by a bus?
Right. Well,
I'm glad to see you.
Right. It is. There's been a series of projects that I've been involved in that have been quite time-consuming, as well as involved with. I can't really get into a lot of the details, but there's unemployment.
Employment
position.
issues and travel and paperwork and his usual teaching and blah 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 blah, and you've just been
yeah. So and you and I had talked before about that there's, as things evolve, that daily news nuggets there may be times when it's more like weekly news nuggets, but that isn't the intention. That isn't the long-term goal.
Not to worry, he'll be back in the. Is there one this?
Oh yeah,
I haven't seen one.
I was actually going to post yesterday, and I ran out of time. I have it all set to go.
Okay. Now, Jared is you are the only guest that I have who actually thinks in advance of what would be perhaps interesting topics for us to take up. I do so appreciate it.
I'm glad.
Also, it gives him a certain amount of control, I must say, because that way you're not sitting here like everybody else does, like a sitting duck, waiting to see what comes out of my mouth and what direction I'm taking.
I'd like to focus in on things that are potentially because as a historian, the field can be pretty wide open, and there's there's a lot of history that I don't know anything about, and we could sort of stumble randomly through many fields before we find something.
Well, historians are good for perspective, and I just want to, before we get into your topics, I want to, on the way here, I was listening to some talk show, and they were just going down all the absurd things that have gone on in this country because of the fear of Ebola. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, you know what? You know what scares me? What scares me is that I am surrounded, apparently, by dunces. By fucking nuts, idiots.
Yes. Yeah.
That's scary.
Yes.
All the scared people scare the hell out of me.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Okay, you agree. So I was wondering, sometimes we comfort ourselves by saying, it was ever thus. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if that old sobriquet is true. I mean, there's a difference now because of media.
Yes. The pervasiveness of it, of the media, and all the different arenas it now plays. But I also think that the degree to which, my mother is a huge fan of the CBS Evening News.
Oh dear.
and
has she noticed that it's gone south? I mean, has she noticed?
Yes, although the Ebola thing, she's actually been slightly enrolled in the
panic.
The panic, and it's one of those things where I think that the urgency around ratings is such that a story like this, they couldn't have made up a story like this.
Great, no.
Yeah, this.
Nor could the Republicans.
This will keep them in cotton for weeks, months, and it requires so little effort on their own part to actually. Oh yeah. And it's like, But
it's the irresponsibility of media, the irresponsibility,
and the unseriousness about it. Yeah. I also take because I think I remember this story correctly, that one of these people that was quarantined down in Texas was a reporter, and she just out of the blue decides that she's going to go to a restaurant nearby and grab some fast food or something. Do you remember this story?
You know, that one I missed.
It's just and it caused this like 48-hour firestorm because it's like. Yeah, because there was already this heightened hysteria, which she herself was partly exploiting.
So here's what the same talk show I was listening to. He had a funny line that had been sent to him. Try to get, again, perspective. Kim Kardashian, which is somebody that the multitudes, panic multitudes will know and recognize immediately, even though they couldn't name a Supreme Court justice. Okay.
Yes.
Kim Kardashian has had more husbands than people who have died in the United States because of Ebola.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I think she's actually in the running for anybody who's even contracted Ebola in the United States.
That's true.
It's like, she could put up fair numbers in that regard.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
Well, I just again. A system of government like ours requires first of all, engaged citizenry and an educated citizenry.
Yes.
And when we have a media that, in this information age, which seems bent on nothing more than ratings.
Yep, eyeballs.
Money, eyeballs, and misinformation. This is the misinformation age, the disinformation age. Mm-hmm. We are the least informed people.
Yes. I agree.
And it scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly
okay. Well, you're not making me
it.
feel any better.
No. Well, I'm definitely concerned about it, but it's the kind of thing that, the urgency around ratings is. It draws. You can almost see it when you watch the news.
Oh yeah.
Is how it is that a reporter or a host will lead the conversation in certain directions, generating the most fearful kind of response from an audience. And I think one of the sad mistakes that many executives have made is that the best way to keep ratings ongoingly is to promote anxiety.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, hello.
That keeps people engaged.
But that's been going on even when I was in TV, which is a million years ago.
Sure. Yes.
I used to make fun of my fellow, I guess the producers of the show, because they go on JAGs and all the media do. So all of a sudden, every other night, there's another missing child somewhere. And that's when faces started popping up on milk cartons and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't recall ever doing that story before, but all of a sudden there were more missing children than you could shake it. It didn't matter that they were generally missing because one of their parents took them. Instead, they create this fear, which now results in parents not allowing like a 12-year-old to walk to school.
Did you hear that story about that? I guess it was a 9 or a 10-year-old. Her parent, his parents were hauled before the state child care agency.
What egregious thing had they done? Let him walk to school?
No, they had been at the bottom. They had a large lawn, and the kids were down at the edge of the lawn. And the person who was watching this thought that their parents were being negligent in not observing them from in their own lawn.
Oh God, I want to shoot these people. I want them out, gone, all of them. Yeah, every one of them.
Well, the person who reported them were aided and abetted in part by the fact that the state agency actually sent people out to investigate.
We have. Call 911 if you see children playing in their yard.
Yep, they're unsupervised.
Without a parent nervously observing their every action.
Yes.
Oh, God.
I've been for all kinds of reasons, mostly medical related. I've been having a lot of time with my mother lately, where she's talking about. She remembers as a 4-year-old, walking downtown in, I think it was Perth Amboy, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. With her wagon to get groceries and haul them back.
I was talking to my mom about this just the other day, and I said, it makes me crazy. She said, Mom, for God's sakes, we were walking, you didn't even know where we were. We were everywhere. From, the time you could walk. Yeah, you're 2 years old, out the door you go. And she said, and I was ranting about these parents today, and she said, well, things are different now. And I thought, see, they've made her... I said, Mom, you think there weren't people who,
preyed on children
in the 50s? Well, there weren't as many, she said. And I said, that's not true. We didn't talk about it. The media didn't. Nobody said anything.
I would also say that that the whole way that people thought about it in the early 20th century and in the 19th as well was very different, in the sense that there's a whole different mythology or a way of speaking about child disappearance in the early 20th and late 19th century, like children running away.
Oh, so if a child disappears, they assume it was of their own volition.
They ran away, yeah, or something like that.
Well, they still went looking for them, maybe.
Maybe. But the other thing is the myth of kids running away to the circus.
Oh my God! You mean they didn't run away to the circus? Not that many.
No, they may have. That was sort of a way of speaking about disappearing children that people could process. There wasn't the storyline about mass killers and child predators and all that kind of stuff, and yet there was. This whole other way of processing child disappearance.
I've mentioned this book before, Wisconsin Death Trip.
I missed that. What is it?
Oh, you would love this book.
Oh, really?
It is taken from newspaper articles from, I'm remembering it as like 1880s, 1890s, in rural Wisconsin. The horror of what was going on then. If any one of those stories would be nonstop 24-hour news on CNN.
Yes.
I mean, people doing unspeakable things to other people, to children, to this, to that. It's called Wisconsin Death Trip. And there's hey, want some perspective?
Yes. Well, another book that's like that is called A Pickpocket's Tale. It's about a boy who grows up in the 19th century in the 5 Points section of New York City. And when he was an old man in the 1920s, he wrote a brief outline of his life. And a really eminent historian named Timothy Guilfoyle got a hold of that unpublished typewritten document and was able, through historical research, to verify almost everything this guy said.
And it's an unbelievable story.
It's an unbelievable story.
Yeah.
Where you just get a whole different world perspective about what it was like to grow up in places like what we would now think of as the inner city of 19th century America.
Well, stop and think about some of these children. There was one on the front page of the New York Times today. I think he's 8 years old. He's one of these kids who, can you imagine, he didn't just walk around the corner to see, a playmate. He got from Guatemala to the United States to escape gangs. He's one of the kids that got into this country. He's 8 years old. He made it. I don't know, but I mean, this sense we infantilize our children to the point where I don't know how they become independent adults
with judgment,
with a sense that they're capable of making judgments.
Yeah.
All right, I'll stop. I know I get.
I would in the broad outlines. I definitely agree with you that there is just an abandonment of the idea that you should let children just cut them loose earlier.
My son. I usually don't get personal like this. My son has had his own apartment in the city that he goes to school in for 3 years now. I've never seen it.
No.
When I say that, they said, "What do you mean you've never seen it?" I said, "Well, I don't know. It's his apartment. He's not wild about me coming down to see him. He comes up to see me a lot.
Sure.
I believe that finding his own apartment, furnishing his own apartment, taking care of himself without mommy is the very idea of what he's supposed to be doing. Being independent, truly."
Yes.
I think this... I don't know. I don't know another parent who would say what I just said. They move their children in. You see them. Sorry, I can't. I thought I could come to your dinner party. But, Chelsea is changing apartments. Chelsea, meanwhile, is 23 or something. And I'm going to New York to help her move. And I'm thinking, you are nuts.
Well, I've heard several just in this last a couple of months, two different versions of the same story, where I have a 16 and an 18-year-old who their parents are in conversations for what type of new car they're going to get their kid.
Oh God.
It's like
new car.
New car.
I did not have a new car until I was in my 40s.
Ditto. Yeah, ditto.
And it's not that I was gainfully employed in my late 20s and 30s, but I didn't have. I got used cars. I could still get used cars. I bought my own when what did they? I can't stand. This kind of
in the conversation with one of these people, it was, my daughter, she wants this kind of a car.
But
But what she really should have is something far more practical, like this other kind of car.
Yes.
And I figured, let's get her the safer, this other kind of car.
But she'll have
It was a Subaru versus not a Corvette, but one of it was
and this is a teenager, you said.
Yes.
Oh God, I think it's sick. I'm sorry. I know I'm offending people left and right, but I think it's just sick. I don't know how you expect children to become.
Well, the expectation level for people like that, I would say you wondered about parents. My brother had he had 3 kids, and his attitude was that when the clock struck midnight, when they turned 18 out they
That's
went.
That's pretty much my sense.
And he had been telling them that since they were 11 and 12 years old. It's like when you hit that, you're out.
You're out.
And it's and all 3 of them knew it, and it was challenging in different ways for all 3 of them, but now they're. I don't think I've told you. My oldest nephew's like 28, and he owns his own farm, and it's this extraordinary piece of real estate up in Connecticut, and he's a skilled.
This is the one who was abandoned by his parents at the age of 18.
Yep, and he's a shipwright and a carpenter, and he builds amazing things out of wood. And it's just it's amazing.
I don't know.
Yeah, 28 years old.
Jeez. All right, we'll stop.
Yes, we're devolving into fuddy-duddyism.
Do you think that's what it is?
I embrace the title.
I do too. In this regard, absolutely. Yeah. New parenting is horrible. It's just plain horrible. It is. Well, never mind. Stop, Cullen. Stop it.
Yes. You need a sharp implement to stab your hand with every time you. After 2 minutes, it's like.
Good God, we've eaten up a third of the damn show and haven't even gotten to anything.
Well, this is fine.
On history. Well, we've sort of. Okay.
Let's touch lightly.
Okay. Well, I'm intrigued by this one thing you suggested. What's worth celebrating today but isn't? And if you go, you're going to go off on Obama, aren't you?
No.
Oh, you're not. What's worth
celebrating
but is not celebrated?
To me, one of the there are dimensions of Obamacare that isn't what I was thinking of. I mean, there is a general trend in the media towards there's this enormous gap between what passes for the good news story of the day on any given evening news program to what is
everything else.
To everything else, and it kind of like lost in all of this are things that are going on that are so monumental. Now, and that's where I'm just going to throw it out there that Obamacare
is
it is completely that.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, but I mean, did you read Time Magazine's cover story on transgender?
No.
We often talk about LGBT, kind of and yet the.
Oh, not Time Magazine. You mean Time?
No. It was,
it was Time Magazine.
Yeah,
because I think the New York Times had a.
Now this was Time Magazine.
Okay,
their cover story.
Okay.
About that's kind of like the T in the LGBT revolution is really starting to assert itself.
Yes.
And that is. As I was reading the piece, I was really present to how that there really is this enormous gap still between lesbian, gay, and bisexuals on the one hand.
And transgender. Well, I think it's because people have more trouble getting their head around it.
Absolutely.
I admit that I do.
That's what the cover story was all about.
Yeah.
And now one of the things that had me present to this recently is that a former boyfriend of my niece who finally came out and said that he wanted to transition from being male to being female, that his family, their first response was that, if you do that, you're out of here and you're not welcome back. That was their first response.
Yeah.
Now, I remember 20 years ago, I had a friend in college who I subsequently found out had the same conversation with his parents. And these were kind of wealthy Newport, Rhode Island types. And they had said the same thing. And this guy went and committed suicide at the time because he just...
Right.
There was no space for him to live, he thought, anymore.
And so when you do think that we're pulling...
But here's with my niece's former friend, that former boyfriend, that it was, it's like the conversation, as much as, there was still some of that, the family came around. Mm-hmm. And these were not liberal people.
No.
These were people that were fairly conservative. Average working class type of people. And the other thing, and I'd say I was part of this conversation myself, was, God, what a brave person.
You bet.
It takes extraordinary courage, and that's what I got out of the Time Magazine piece as well. So what I'm present to when I talk about what it is that is worth celebrating is the courage of these people who are finally... There's enough light out in the public space for some of them to come out and actually, because I'll tell you,
and live their lives and also educate the rest of us.
Yes, both like with my this person that I know up in Connecticut, he is, it's like transitioning from his transition from male to female. He'll be able to pull that off without standing out, but I know others. Like I know a man who is like 6'1" and a fairly heavy-set guy with a fairly deep voice. He lost his job. He lost his marriage. His family are Christians and won't speak to him. And it's like he found a community of people that, and the last I heard, this was a couple of years ago, that I heard that he was living in his ex-wife's basement.
Oh, God.
And yet, it's like, that's worth celebrating, that kind of courage to do that. And... there's a lot of people who still totally aren't on that page.
Okay, well, you know what? So that brings us to another topic you had down.
Yeah.
Doings at the Catholic Church.
Yes, isn't that something?
Okay, so...
I continue to revise my opinion.
Do you say schism or schism?
Schism.
Schism.
Yeah.
Well, whoa. I mean... I would think, given the fact that we've had have we had 3 conservative popes since? Benedict.
There's Paul the Sixth was the sort of liberal.
Sort of, but then John Paul and then Benedict. Okay, those 2. Well, John Paul really. I mean, packed the
Yep.
the College of Cardinals.
Yes.
With people like-minded,
Yes.
which is to say traditional, doctrinaire, conservative, anything but social progressives. So this Pope, Francis, is now, it's sort of like Obama as president having a totally Republican Congress.
Exactly.
Well,
It's very interesting. Now the one of the difficulties Francis is going to face is the demographics with the current demographics.
Yes.
Within the Catholic Church don't work for him, because what you're having right now is the vast majority of growth within the Catholic Church are occurring in Africa and Asia and Latin America, and amongst constituents that are much more conservative than Europeans or others. And so it's like the new generation of leadership that's going to emerge in the Catholic Church, you got to
you wish him long life.
Exactly.
And hope that he can continue to repopulate the college with with people who are willing to allow the church to
more in touch,
grow, and be more in touch. And if you pay real close attention, not even real close attention, he's kicked out of a very important office, the former that disgusting jerk from St. Louis.
Yes.
Cardinal, I forget his name.
I forget
oh my
the names
God,
of these
what a
people.
vile person.
Yes.
Horrible. He's kicked, and that guy has been openly dissing this Pope.
Yes.
And you know what I find interesting about that?
Oh, yeah?
These are people who talk about, papal authority and doing things right. And that works for them until they don't like the Pope.
Exactly.
And what he's up to. And now this guy, and then he has elevated people like Donald Wuerl, for instance, who, as you know, passed through here.
Yes.
And has a much larger and open heart.
That's it. And I think where you really hit on this is the folks that are not being promoted.
Yeah.
That it's like this generation of people that were the next tier down, that were all primed under John Paul and Benedict to move on to even more higher. They almost universally they're being passed over.
Absolutely. Can you imagine? Underneath the robes and behind, those closed doors and the piety that the public sees.
Yes.
Can you imagine the knives that are out? Can you imagine?
I actually can't.
Would it
be
something?
It's a world that we're so not privy to.
Oh, man.
And yet it was almost out in the open these last couple of weeks. And it's like, okay, what's next?
And let's be clear, it's not like Francis is going to overnight make the church gay friendly or whatever.
No.
And you saw what happened with that synod. They let out their first draft, which
trial
talked about
balloon.
Welcoming, and man, it's roadkill.
Yep.
So he doesn't have
the trial balloon got shot out of the sky really fast.
Woo.
But hey, you got to start somewhere, and I think that, in the world of appointments again, it's like, yes, there's areas where Francis himself is still a very conservative, traditional kind of pope, but that as long as he's looking towards those people who have heart, people who have generosity towards the failings and the diversity that make up the humanity, then I'm not worried.
No. And that is, if I were to say the one thing that I love about this Pope is his humanity.
Yeah. There's certain areas still, like in the area of his treatment of the
nuns.
The nuns.
Oh,
needs to work on that. But given where it seems like we've been in this time bubble for most of my adult life, where it's just like, where
I
are the John the 23rd? So what happened to that whole group of reformers?
I mean, what we've been seeing since it's whenever there's you as a historian though, right?
Yeah.
There were the 60s, which pushed things way forward, and then
the reaction.
Since then, there continues to be a reaction that pushed it way, way, way back.
Yeah.
But so that's the way progress happens, right? A little bit.
I love the way it is that you get certain of the most vile reactionary talking heads in the United States, like Rush Limbaugh, try to talk about the Pope and not have it simply be another version of
what they say
Hillary and Obama.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
It's like, no, Francis isn't a Democrat. He's not. He's not Ted Kennedy. No, it's just, and yet he can't. That people like that, they can't. They're so.
They can't totally.
I almost view that, and I often sometimes wonder about this, whether somebody like Rush Limbaugh or G. Gordon Liddy or Oliver North, if they actually have any genuine religious faith at all, or whether it really is all just media blather.
Well, I would argue that unless they're being honest, what they spew is honestly what they believe, then, I mean, I don't see how you could have real religion and precepts that religion, the good stuff. I don't see how you could do what they do.
If you didn't, or you do?
If you do. If you do.
If they had genuine...
There's something despicable to me about somebody who would, given a microphone and a platform, use it for their own, aggrandizement, money, celebrity, power, fame, by spewing stuff they really didn't believe.
Well, this harkens back to one of the earliest moments in Rush Limbaugh's eminent career, where he was, and I believe this was during, I think it was early years of Clinton, when Chelsea Clinton was going through a difficult developmental stage, let us say, and he
called her.
Well, he had his own television program at the time,
right?
And he did like an early version of what Jon Stewart now does, except he did it at Chelsea Clinton's expense.
A child.
She was
like
14.
12 or 13. Yeah,
and he put a picture up with a pig's face on something like this, and he was later interviewed by the eminent Ted Koppel, and about kind of confronted about that and some other things that he had said. And his response was so telling, was, well, at the base, I'm just an entertainer.
That's it. Well, I have said that to people, too. The medium of talk radio is not an informational or news medium.
Yeah.
It is an entertainment medium. So he was speaking the truth. But so I'm an entertainer. That somehow that was his excuse for attacking a child?
Or for anything.
Or humiliating a child?
It was like Ted Koppel was trying to corner him on those areas of recent political analysis where he was just like dead, it's just wildly off. And he didn't even bother to defend how off he was. He just said, well, at base, I'm just an entertainer, and that's I have my audience, and I come up with controversial topics to entertain.
Yeah, he's got his shtick.
Yeah, and so it's like,
and any kind of damage that the shtick does is
or it's
unimportant to him.
Any kind of relationship with reality. It's like
no, it doesn't matter.
It's his audience that is what matters.
So it's not unlike, the traveling carnival, with, the bearded ladies and then this. It's just whatever.
Who was it? P.T. Barnum, who, it's like he would make things up.
Yeah, well, sure.
Yeah, have the mermaid.
Right. And people would buy anything.
Sure, the half man, and it was just like it's just.
And people, so we laugh at people. They actually believe that was a mermaid. Well, you believe that President Obama has brought Ebola into the United States because he wants payback for
Africa.
Slavery or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That's what I'm telling you. Cavemen with smartphones. That's all you are. I don't mean you.
Right.
I'm just talking in general to the...
Yeah. Well, you got to be straight, Lynn. It's especially listeners to your program.
That's right.
Cavemen.
Why can't they be more like us? Indeed.
Right. Yes.
Why can't everybody be more like us? All right, I'm looking at your other topics. Hillary's non-campaign campaign. I do not want to mention her name for at least another 12 months.
Okay.
I just can't stand it. But I will say this.
Yes.
I'm not in love with her.
No.
I will say this. I will vote for her if she's the Democrat. If there's a woman in politics that really makes me swoon, it is Senator Warren.
Okay. You
don't do anything with Elizabeth Warren?
No. I don't think she's ready yet.
She doesn't float your boat?
And I'm fine. I'm fine with where she's at. I think she's had an exemplary short Senate career.
May I give you Barack Obama? Was he ready yet? He had not even an exemplary short Senate career.
Sure, but I would say that he still had substantive accomplishment, and moreover, I would say that he'd been in the firing line much more than she has so far.
Okay. I don't know.
And also, I think actually the fundamental issue I have with Warren is I'm skeptical that as a liberal senator from Massachusetts...
Oh, she could ever win a national election. Yeah. I got you.
It's just...
Well, I agree.
So it's it's actually not personal to her at all.
But I'm just saying, if you've ever heard her speak just extemporaneously, your heart swells. I mean, she's saying what you want a Democrat to say.
Yes.
But you're right. It won't probably work in a national election.
Now, I know that the Hillary campaign people, and I think we may have talked about this, I'm not sure, are clearly looking to Julio Castro as somebody that they want to use him for something.
Well, I'll tell you, wouldn't it just be like a Democrat to have Castro on the ticket?
Well,
I'm serious.
He's very interesting. He's a very compelling speaker and somebody.
So the Republicans will counter with, "I'll take your Castro and I'll up you with our Rubio."
There you go.
Or our Jeb Bush,
sure.
who has a little brown child because his wife, Consuelo. Whatever. That's what. It's also disgusting.
Yep, but hey, it's been worse.
It has been worse. Okay, that's what we needed to hear from you.
And I guess the last thing I would say about Hillary is that I do have concerns about the direction that her campaign has taken.
What do you mean her campaign? She's not even running.
Everybody there's no conversation out there that is like, oh well, she's not running.
No.
She's. Yeah.
All right, let's leave it alone because it's going to be so ugly.
Yes, it is.
I don't even want to think about it. I don't know.
Well, the good news is that Jeb Bush's chances seem to be diminishing.
Right.
Yeah.
But the bad news is Chris Christie seemed to be rising.
Same thing now.
All right.
I think that he is that his problems in New Jersey are such that whatever passes for wiser heads in the Republican side that they're just not going to go for him.
They will if they think he can win.
But there's too many other candidates who are appealing.
Who?
Oh, Ted Cruz.
Oh, come on.
But he, in terms of appealing to the base of the Republican Party.
I know, but able to win a national election?
No, not at all. But in terms of winning the primary in the GOP.
Oh, okay. So you're saying
Christie
okay.
between the corruption issue and him
just his bluster.
His being from a liberal state and having liberal positions, or
Here and there.
relatively speaking. No. It's like I never took him seriously as a candidate, and what's happened since this whole yeah.
Let's lighten up here.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, you asked, did I watch the FDR Ken Burns documentary?
Yeah.
It wasn't just FDR. It was the Roosevelts,
This
I
is
believe.
true.
So it was Teddy.
Yep, Teddy, Eleanor, and
yeah.
FDR and Franklin.
I thought it was wonderful.
Wasn't it? I thought.
Thought it was
to
wonderful.
me, it's like it's so much of what passes for documentaries are like one episode, maybe two, and there you got what was it, six or seven?
It was 7 or 8. It was a full week.
and it was just
Wonderful.
a luxurious swim in recent U.S. history.
Well, you ask what would you like to see Burns tackle next? Well, because you said that FDR is recent, he can't go beyond that. It's too fraught to take
Actually,
a subject.
he is.
He's doing something beyond the
Vietnam.
30s or 40s? Oh, no.
Yes,
Is that what he's doing?
He and David McCullough are working on that, and it's I think
that's gonna
7,
be
8, or
interesting.
9 episode treatment on Vietnam.
See, I would think, wow, that's fraught.
I know.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
But you see, that was there was an original documentary series done, I think, around 1978 or 9 on PBS on Vietnam. I think. Carnot it was based on Carnot's book, and it was really the beginning of modern PBS documentaries. Where it was such a controversial.
Well, at that time, my God, we were just out of it.
I so remember their interviews of Madam, whatever her name was, the first lady of South Vietnam.
Oh, Madam New.
Madam New. The interviews of this woman, it was just like, oh my God.
Oh gosh.
This is like something out of Fu Manchu. Where's the curved blade hiding in her waistband?
Well, but she was a good Catholic.
I suppose.
Well, wasn't she? No,
no, but she was also a vicious.
No, I know. Yeah. Well,
evil. And then have her just speak so openly about, it's like, yep, we had those people shot, and it's just like, yep, we did.
Yes, of course they had to be. Okay. Oh boy. Ray, who is our papal correspondent, has written a tome here. I will share. It is always awkward for me to listen to church talk from people who know the church by looking in from the outside, or by people who know the church from Mel Brooks movies. What? Well, I have the church because 75 generations have handed it down to me since the church landed in Ireland. I can picture the long line stretched out behind me, and I am grateful. I considered it my obligation to them to at least study it and understand it as best I can. If I had a timepiece handed down for that many generations, if all those people preserved and cherished their heirlooms, I would be a cretin not to at least see how it worked and ask why they held it in such why it was important to them, I think is what you meant. There's a word missing here. It doesn't mean I need to use it to tell time, but it should have a place of honor in my life, and I should at least offer it to my children. So speculation and ridicule by the media is sometimes amusing, but sometimes frustrating. They don't know how it ticks. Well, that's a wonderful personal.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Were we ridiculing?
I don't think so.
I don't think we were.
I was.
Were we?
I mean, to me, I have profound respect for the Catholic Church and its history, and and indeed I view it as something that I have hopes for it as in the future it's going in. But I make no bones. I am not a Catholic.
No, I'm not a Catholic either. But Ray, I mean, it was beautifully said, because I mean that's what makes me a Jew. The same kind of, I owe this. I mean, there's no way I will never not stand as a Jew because of all of my ancestors. I'm sure many of whom perished because they were. Mm-hmm. And to let that go, of course not. I cherish that, but I'm not particularly religious.
Right.
But the thing about the church, though, that forces people like you to have to listen or be assaulted to your ears by people like us talking about this valued thing in your life,
sure,
in less than maybe respectful terms sometimes. The reason why you have to that happens is because the Catholic Church is one of the most powerful institutions in Western civilization, and it has impacted all our lives. Go ahead, we've got a caller. Hello.
Hey, I would say that, well, first of all, I would think there has plenty of time has passed to do a Vietnam documentary, especially after the documentary where that was so extensively interviewed Robert McNamara.
Yeah.
And kind of laid him bare and laid the whole thing bare. So I think it's appropriate.
Yes.
Let's not forget, there are, well, I'm 45, and my generation really had nothing to do with Vietnam other than the movie Platoon.
Yep.
Well, I lived it, and that was Errol Morris's extraordinary documentary with McNamara.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
Fog of War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
So I would say there we are. It's ripe for the.
Well, I hope so.
Agree.
It is something. It's something we've got to get past, and I don't know.
Yes.
There's this. It's well.
Well, that's a funny way to phrase it, because I think you're right. I don't think we've necessarily gotten past it. I think we've just forgotten it.
Oh no, we have not.
I think it just generationally just went by the wayside. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there.
Right.
Yes.
The one thing I would say about the Catholic Church is that I did 12 years in Catholic school, and it reminds me of the little discussion you just had there about Ray's opinion about it, and the sticker that has the Confederate flag on it that says "History, not Heritage." I look at the Catholic Church the same way. I have no use for it. I think it's an archaic remnant that just needs to be. There's just so many things that it has done wrong. Granted, there are many things that the faith that it has given people and has gotten through to things, but I think it's passe at this point. And
But it's not. But I'm here to tell you it's not. It might be passe in Western setting, Europe and the United States, but it isn't even there.
No.
But as we said, it's burgeoning in Asia and Africa and South America.
Well,
it ain't passe.
I think there's a difference between it being a legitimate, let's say a legitimate. Well, I think it's just another in the same vein of what it did to, or the way it used Europeans, and now it's just doing it because it needs people.
But you don't suggest that it is not still a major player on the world stage.
I think it is only because we allow it to be. I don't think it is a major player. I really don't think it's a major player.
Okay.
Everybody wants to listen to it, and when the news comes out about the Vatican saying something, but if you really think about it, people don't really give a shit what the Vatican says. Whose life is dictated by what the Vatican says?
Well, I don't think anybody's lives are necessarily dictated by it, but I think that there are millions of people who, in both overt and discreet ways, pay attention. And
Yeah,
there's
I think you're absolutely right.
there's remarkably few sources of authority in the world now that command much respect, and
or that have that reach.
yeah. And
Well, but I would say that just because it commands that respect doesn't mean it deserves that respect. I think it's just a lack of examination that it still holds any respect whatsoever.
I understand your sentiment, but I would say that like in Francis's case, I think that it's always open to reinvention or to open to a kind of distillation of core of a reconnection with core values. So it's like in the right hands and in coming from the right place, a pope can make an extraordinary difference.
Yeah.
And they cannot. I mean, I thought
and that difference could be positive or negative.
Both Benedict and I would say in the latter years of John Paul, that they abdicated any kind of, at least not any, a lot of credibility.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Maybe that's why that I have kind of written it off more than
You have come to adulthood during a time when such people they didn't conduct themselves in ways that.
What are you saying? John Paul was worshipped. He's a saint.
Sure,
now. I mean,
among some, but you see, he got. You could sort of say
was loved.
through his death, he got out of Dodge just in time. and it was the kind of thing that the child abuse and sexual abuse scandals that have rocked the Catholic Church,
and apparently the corruption of like the Vatican Bank and all that stuff, and the Curia.
Difficult to overstate the extent to which that has damaged the Catholic Church in Europe and in America. It is, it's like, it is.
Well, just look at in the short amount of time that Francis has been in, how much he has changed compared to what John Paul changed.
Yeah.
Well, it's the tone, if it's just the tone, the more humility he shows, all that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff packs a punch.
Well, it's New Testament as opposed to the Old Testament.
And it also
really
ties in with the issue of bringing accountability for recent history. Now, it remains to be seen the extent to which Francis has done, but he hasn't been so defensive. It was kind of like under Benedict and John Paul, especially.
Total defensive.
There was like they were in a fetal position, and all they seemed to be concerned about was the reputation of the Catholic Church versus the impact that these priests had upon children.
Right. They didn't care about the children.
And they demonized those children, and they said and did things that. It's like you'd find out of Rush Limbaugh's lips.
Hey,
thanks,
Polly, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. It just occurred to me, because Ray, I still see your email up there. It's interesting that, your Irish Catholicism is so in your bones and blood, and yet in Ireland, the Catholic Church has lost
reeling
total authority. I mean, it is because of the abuse that has come to light. And you, at the remove from, your homeland of Ireland, maybe aren't feeling it as intensely. And I wonder if you were in Ireland, if you would...
or certain precincts of Philadelphia or Boston, where for years the sexual abuse scandal was impacting bishops and priests that you knew.
Yeah,
it's and it's like in those kinds of environments, you see an institution's reactions much more personally.
Yes.
It's like, wow, this person that I
respect
and looked to and was involved in marriages and deaths and births and all this kind of stuff, that now they're behaving like Richard Nixon. And it's just... It's
whatever. I mean, I just think that Ireland, I mean, it's so weird that there the Vatican sits, but in Italy, abortion is legal. Spain, can you have a more Catholic country? Abortion is legal. Ireland, pulling away. I forget what's happened, but there's really a complete abandonment of the church. Used to have such a position of authority there. It does not anymore. The government, I think Vatican ambassadors have been recalled. I mean, it's really, it's ugly. So the Catholic Church will always remain a topic of conversation by non-Catholics because of its huge reach throughout our history.
Yeah.
And continuing into the future. I will say this. I've always said this.
Yeah.
You cannot name, Mr. History, you cannot name a more successful institution in terms of longevity than the Catholic Church. It's
That's
over
true.
2,000 years old.
Yeah.
And it has...
Yeah.
I don't think there's another institution.
It's seen better days.
Yeah,
and it's also seen worse days.
Yeah.
I was just recently doing a lecture on a period of Catholic history. I think it was in the 1400s when there was 3 popes at the same time. So it's like, it's like
and all their little children.
Well, yeah, it's an institution rife with controversy ongoingly.
And also because it has such an impact on the politics of this country.
Yeah.
As a citizen of the United States, I completely have the right to talk about the Catholic Church.
Sure.
Because it has such an impact on who our presidents can be, what policies get through.
Yeah.
It has been front and center on the unbelievable erosion of a woman's right to control her own health and life, and dying people's rights to control. I mean, I am in opposition to it as a citizen. So I have to pay attention. But I understand. I think that's a very beautiful thing you wrote. I really do.
Yep.
Okay.
I look to my blog. I talk about the Catholic Church regularly in my blog, and I like to think that I do so in a respectful way, in a way that it looked at the sex scandal surrounding the priests and bishops with sadness. That it was just like this is going to damage a generation or two. For the Catholic Church in a way that they would need somebody like Francis to come along and actually deal with it in a far more straightforward way.
Guess what? We're out of time.
Oh my God. Okay.
Always a pleasure, Mr. Dave.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's always great to come on.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So we'll book him for another appearance. Mm-hmm. I thank you for joining us. Tom Sokolowski will be with us tomorrow. Have a great day. So.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.